My girlfriend of 2 years cheated, and I didn't find out till she was engaged 3 months later, but I got the last laugh. To be honest, I've been scared that my ex could see this since she recognizes my username, but it's been 4 years since the divorce, so it and she. But brace yourselves, this is going to be a lengthy one. I met my ex when we were both in college. I was 24 years old, and she was 22. Prior to her, I hadn't dated much. I had just ended a nasty year-long relationship that had ended amicably. The other girl was despondent to the point of suicidal ideation. I loved her, but she was so sad that I could do anything. I'm an empath, and her melancholy would soak into me. As a result, I severed it. My ex was the one who contacted me since we both lived in the same apartment building. I had gone out of my way to assist her a few times, but it was her request for a ride that ignited the friendship and ultimately the relationship. I'd spend hours with her, whether she was at home or at the sandwich shop where she worked. She was absent from school owing to despair and a failed engagement from around a year ago. However, as far as I know, she never completed high school and moved twice to different universities. We connected in part because of her narrative of how her ex had deceived and cheated on her, though I now question how much of the story was true. We grew to be inseparable. After barely 2 months of FWB, she introduced me to her parents. After a few months, I wanted to be my girlfriend since I had no interest in other ladies but her. She rejected, stating that she was not prepared due to a previous commitment. This should have been my first red sign, but like the fool I was, I let her off the. We continued to date alone. She didn't date anybody else, and I didn't either. A month later, I brought up our relationship status again, since if we were already exclusive, why not simply say it? She persisted in her struggle. There were periods in our relationship when everything appeared to be going swimmingly. She appeared to like everything I did. She and I had comparable aspirations, and we simply felt like a good fit. But every now and again, I'd catch myself making snide comments about myself. She would occasionally compare me to her many ex-boyfriends. We would occasionally quarrel about little matters, and I would attempt to de-escalate the situation, but she would not have it. She'd rush out of my flat, and I'd have to track her down. She would grow enraged whenever I did that, claiming that I should have given her more room. So the next time she did that, I wouldn't rush after her, and she'd accuse me of being uninterested in her. She also started gaslighting me on some things I recalled her saying, though I didn't know what gaslighting was at the time. But, like a true romantic, I went with it. When I mentioned her, several of my friends told me that I could do better. That she didn't treat me properly, but I ignored it. People listen to your pals since they are typically looking out for you. Even after a year of dating, I would bring up the possibility of becoming an official BF/GF, but she remained unfazed. She still said she wasn't ready, but I was the greatest man she'd ever dated. Her friends were all aware that we were dating, but to be honest, I didn't like them. She'd offer me to hang out with them, but they were cliched, and I'm not like that. They also have a cat, and I'm allergic to cats, so I used that as an excuse. We would go on dates, she would call me every night, and we would talk all night until one of us woke up the following day. She stated I was consoling her and helping her sleep since she was depressed. We continued to have issues, and she would even become violent at times. On 2 instances, she smacked me hard. They were both done not because we were arguing, but because she thought it would be amusing. I told her it was rude and that I expected the same in return, since I would never do that to her. During one of our disputes, she said, "My roommate knows all the guys in the complex who would be willing to be NCMOs, so I don't really need you." Although after a little more than a year of dating, she caved in and chose to be GF/PF, but she appeared to keep it a secret from everyone save her family. I thought it was strange, but because I had received what I wanted, I ignored it. I'm going to put something in here and admit that I wasn't always a great so. I also have depression, and the stress of job, school, family, and her may be overwhelming at times. I yelled but never injured her. I would bring out the things she had done that had caused me pain. We had multiple breakups. I would occasionally break up with her, and she would sometimes break up with me. But each time, one of us would give in and return to each other. I was a little manipulative and self-harmed once to show her how much it was hurting me. She had also self-harmed and voiced suicide thoughts when we were dating, and to be honest, I got the notion from her. I was over heels in love with her. She informed me that she was accompanying me. We spoke about marriage, children, and where we would live, among other things. She relocated twice throughout this period. First, she moved to a nearby apartment, and then to her parents' home nearly an hour north. She held a party while she lived in the flat down the street. When it was over, none of her friends remained to assist clean, only I did. She said it was evidence that I'd be a wonderful spouse. I would pay her visits practically regularly after she moved in with her folks. However, I started to detect a certain amount of remoteness at times. She was responding to my SMS and phone calls at a glacial pace. However, if she phoned or texted me, she wanted a prompt response. I would come to her whenever she needed me, even at 1 a.m. when I had job and school the following day. After a few months, I suggested getting engaged, but she did the same thing she had done with being GF/PF. She used her sadness from a previous relationship as an excuse. Then she asked if we might resume our casual dating. This was the most stupid thing I'd ever done. I replied it was okay. I hoped that by doing so, I would demonstrate to her that I was the right person for her. Over the following 6 months, she'd go on dates, but she'd tell me about them and brag about how much better I was than them. I kept not dating because I was a sap in love with her. But I had promised her that if she met someone she wanted to pursue, I would quit our relationship and she could pursue him on her own. But then, after speaking with my friends and family, I had an epiphany. Why was I doing all of this for her when she wasn't even my girlfriend anymore? So I informed her, and she agreed that any physical connection would halt until we were exclusive again. Except that it didn't. We go on dates, and she'd guilt me and put pressure on me, and I would cave. She would then grow enraged and exclaim, "Why couldn't you resist? Why didn't I intervene?" She grew more aggressive and cruel. The hardest part was when she said that if she became pregnant, she'd never tell me, and she'd be the only one to determine what to do. That stung so deeply since I've always wanted to be a parent and would never abandon my children. But I'd just quarrel with her and eventually we'd make up. Throughout everything, we would continue to discuss our future together. She'd see a mixed baby, I'm Latino and she's white, and comment on how she saw the sweetest kid who might have been ours. Whenever she was down, she would call or ask me, "Will you still marry me?" I'd ask and I'd reply, "Of course I would. I adore you." It wasn't until Christmas, when I was in Florida visiting my brother, that I realized something was wrong. I'd send her a text. She was deafeningly silent. I'd call her at night to do the phone thing, but she'd never answer. But one day she phoned and asked if I had a certain movie on DVD, and when I asked why, she said she didn't. She said I could watch it with my family, but I had a feeling something wasn't quite right. When I returned from vacation and began the new semester of school, she paid me a visit, sort of. She came to my institution for some reason and misplaced her Fitbit, so she phoned me for assistance. I arrived to assist, and we spent some time together, but I sensed something was up. She then told me she wanted me to come see her in 2 days at her parents' home because she needed to speak to me about something. That's when I realized what was about to happen. I chatted to a few of my pals and braced myself for the worst. It was late when I arrived at her parents' place. She requested me to meet her at 10 p.m. She got into my vehicle and we spoke for 30 minutes to an hour. She informed me that she no longer wanted to date me, and I agreed. I told her I had seen her becoming distant and inquired whether it was because of someone else. She denied that there was anything else. She said that she no longer thought we were a good match. But then she said something else. She said that she never thought of me as a spouse material, that she never envisaged us marrying or having children, that she had known from the beginning. She further said that she didn't want to be with me because her children wouldn't look like her, since she is white and I am Latino. This is particularly amusing today, since she loves to brag about how progressive and non-racist she is right. This astounded me. I recalled all of the plans we had made. All those times she'd asked whether I'd marry her. All the times she'd mentioned our potential children. That was the most painful part. I told her I loved her, but that we had reached an agreement. We opted against making touch. She chose to block me on Facebook, claiming that if I banned her, I wouldn't be able to keep her blocked, so she should do it. Okay, I said. We didn't end up banning each other on our phones since if there was an emergency, we wouldn't be able to communicate. I had no family in state. As I drove away, I felt sorry, but also as if a big load had been lifted off my shoulders. Stay tuned for the next part.